Long before satellites orbited the Earth, before radar towers blinked on mountaintops, and before weather apps told us when to carry an umbrella, there were the Watchers. They lived deep within forests, along riverbanks, and in highland valleys, where every breeze, bird cry, and rustling leaf whispered a message. These were the people who didn't guess the weather. They read it. This is the story of how ancient tribes across the world, with no science as we know it, predicted the wrath of nature and survived. Among the Iban of Borneo, a sudden silence in the jungle meant more than calm. It was a warning. The wind, they said, holds its breath before the sky cries. In the Amazon rainforest, elders would sit at the edge of the river in the early mornings, listening, not to people, to the wind. If the wind blew from the east and changed direction suddenly, it was a sign that heavy clouds would gather by dusk. The wind speaks first, they said. Then the sky follows. In Central Africa, the Mbuti people believed that when the wind sang through the trees with a high-pitched whistle, a storm spirit was moving fast across the forest. They would immediately prepare their huts, pull their children close, and hide food in dry places. No technology, no maps, just ears. Generations of observation passed down through stories and rituals. The sky, like a face, reveals emotion to those who understand its moods. The Hopi of North America watched cloud patterns like a painter studies his canvas. High, wispy clouds, what we now call cirrus, were known as feathered trails of the gods. To them, they meant rain within days. A red sky at sunrise was taken as a warning. The sun bleeds when the storm walks. In the steppes of Central Asia, horse nomads knew that a rapid shift in cloud movement was a sign of windstorms. They would stop their migration, set up low tents, and burn specific herbs believed to please the sky spirits, to ask for calm. The ancient Maori of New Zealand looked to the horizon for specific cloud towers. They believed that when these cloud forms rose too tall and stayed still, the sky had become heavy with anger. Storms always followed. They even created songs that mapped these patterns, sung from one generation to the next. All across history, tribes observed one thing even more closely than the sky: the animals. In India, the Warli tribe would stop all field work when birds began flying unusually low, especially the swallows. The birds fall to earth when the sky becomes too heavy, they said. Modern science later confirmed low air pressure before storms causes birds to fly lower. In the Australian outback, the Yolngu people knew when dingoes started pacing in circles or hiding near caves. Rain was coming. Kangaroos disappeared, frogs started to sing louder, and ants built higher mounds overnight. In Papua New Guinea, tribes considered the behavior of insects sacred. If fireflies vanished and frogs began croaking during daylight, it was time to find shelter. Their children were taught early. If the quiet things start singing, the storm is listening. Even domesticated animals were seen as oracles. Chickens huddling together in daylight, dogs whining without cause, or cows refusing to eat were all signs, not of superstition, but of centuries of pattern recognition. Plants, too, played their part. The Maasai of Kenya spoke of the leaf's warning. When leaves of certain trees flipped upside down and showed their pale undersides, rain was imminent. Botanists later found that this happens due to moisture pressure in the air, something modern meteorology would confirm centuries later. In South America, the Yanomami noticed that some flowers would close before a storm, even when no clouds were visible. The petals pray before the sky mourns, their shamans would say. The ground also had a voice. Tribes in the Himalayas believed that when the earth became warmer under bare feet after sunset, a violent storm was coming. Science now knows that some of these signs correlate with atmospheric pressure changes and temperature shifts in the soil. The land, for those who listened, was never silent. It pulsed with information. Not all predictions came from signs. Some were rooted in stories passed down over thousands of years, through chants, carvings, and oral rituals. In these stories, storms weren't just weather, they were living beings. The Lakota of North America believed that thunder was the voice of Wakantanka, the Great Spirit. Lightning was the arrow of Wakinyan, the thunder being, shot across the sky in anger or warning. When thunder echoed 3 times in succession, it was a message to stay inside, to be still. The storm was speaking. Only fools ignored it. In the Polynesian islands, towering clouds meant something deeper. The storm ancestors were returning. These ancestors, powerful spirits of warriors who died in battle, were said to ride storms back to their homeland. When these cloud columns appeared, entire villages would light ceremonial fires, not to stop the storm, but to honor it and ask for mercy. In Aboriginal Australia, the Yolngu people told stories of the lightning snake, a divine force that slithered across the heavens, cracking the sky open. This snake wasn't evil, it was balance. When humans disrupted nature too much, by overhunting, by ignoring signs, the lightning snake came to restore order. Among the Zulu of southern Africa, storm clouds were seen as battles between sky spirits. Thunder was not sound, it was war. And lightning? A spear thrown from the gods. Children were told not to scream during storms, not out of fear, but out of respect. You don't yell while the gods are fighting. These weren't just myths. They were emotional systems that connected people to the environment. They gave people a reason to notice, to feel, to remember. Today, we have satellites. We have AI models. We have maps and charts that predict weather down to the minute. And still, we get caught off guard. Floods sweep through cities. Cyclones break coasts. Landslides erase entire villages, all in spite of technology. But for thousands of years, tribes survived not through numbers, but through memory. They learned to listen, to observe, to trust the nonverbal language of the earth. They didn't ignore a change in bird flight. They didn't miss the silence of the forest. They didn't laugh when the wind changed direction. And even if they didn't fully understand it, they knew the earth was speaking. Modern science has started catching up. We now know that birds really do fly lower when pressure drops. Frogs croak more loudly before storms due to humidity changes. Ants build higher when they sense moisture in the soil. Trees change leaf angles in response to air tension. Dogs, cats, and even cows react to the subsonic frequencies of distant thunder. So maybe, just maybe, the ancients weren't just guessing. They were decoding patterns that we forgot. Today, we scroll, we tap, we refresh apps that tell us the temperature outside even when we're sitting beside a window. But once humans didn't check the weather. They lived it. They watched the clouds like prophets. They listened to frogs like scientists. They respected lightning like priests. They didn't worship weather because they were primitive. They respected it because they were paying attention. And maybe that's what we've lost. Not knowledge, but presence. Not data, but connection. Because the earth still speaks. In the rustle of leaves, in the flight of birds, in the hush before a storm, and in the silence that only the old ones remember. Maybe it's time we start listening again.